It takes money to make money, and crypto is unlocking a way for anyone, yes anyone, to get access to hundreds of millions of dollars without putting up any collateral. The catch is, you have to give it back within seconds. If you know what you're doing, you can use those funds to make crazy profits, though you just might wind up in jail as a result. It's called a flash loan, and I know it sounds crazy, but trust me, the full story is even crazier. Like the guy who claimed draining $100 million from a decentralized finance protocol was just a, quote, highly profitable trading strategy.
I mean, I can't talk about that because there's a settlement agreement, like I said.
Or the other guy who used flash loans to steal nearly $200 million from a different protocol, only to change his mind and return all the funds. This week on Coinage, what the flash is going on in the world of DeFi. If I lent you $1 million under the condition that you had to return it a second later, what would you do with it? Obviously, you can't do any of the things rich people actually do, like buy a really nice sports car, or buy a person, or get a hair transplant. So what can you do with the money? As it turns out, quite a lot of damage. But before we get into that, it's important to understand how flash loans work. So if you'd allow me to borrow your attention for a few seconds, I promise I'll give it back in a flash. Flash loans were first introduced to DeFi in January 2020 by the protocol Aave, which is one of the top projects in all of DeFi. Flash loans take advantage of a principle of blockchains called atomicity. Basically, transactions are all or nothing. If your transaction has 4 steps and only 3 of them succeed, you don't end up with 3/4 of a transaction. You just get nothing.
Good day, sir!
In the real world, there are a lot of steps to borrowing money. You have to go to a bank, sit down with a real person, and convince them to give you a loan. The banker is probably going to ask you for as much financial information as you can give them, plus documents in order to prove your identity, plus details about what you're going to use the money for, plus the soul of your firstborn son. And in the end, they might still reject you. That's because the banker has to guess whether or not you're going to pay back the loan. But what if, before you lent someone money, you knew for sure whether or not they were going to pay you back? Of course, no one can see the future. If you could, Donald Trump's weird foreshadowing in The Apprentice would make a lot more sense.
Don't you think that you sort of put yourself in a very bad position talking about sex? Sex is provocative. It's gotten me into a lot of trouble, Adam.
But with flash loans, it is possible to see into the future, in a sense. Flash loans take place entirely within a single blockchain transaction, which, as you'll remember, are all or nothing. So if you try to take the money and run without paying the loan back, the transaction will fail. And it'll be like the money never got to you in the first place. If you use that money to make some instant profits, though, enough to cover the principal of the loan and the modest fee, your flash loan will go through. And that's the only requirement for a flash loan. No need to hand over your bank statements or trust someone with their social security number or even to talk to another person. You can see why flash loans are popular with crypto investors.
Can imagine a use of the technology that allows you to monetize personal data because the cost has gone down.
So how do you make some instant profits? Well, flash loans are designed to help users exploit arbitrage opportunities. If an asset's selling for more on one platform compared to another, the simple move is just to buy low and sell high. But in order to make lots of money in arbitrage, you need a lot of money to begin with, or at least you used to. Now, literally anyone can play the markets like hedge funds do, slinging around massive amounts of capital with zero liabilities. Sounds great, right? In fact, a crypto bot recently borrowed $200 million to make a profit of $3. Not $3 million, $3. But that's a success story. The bot is $3 richer, the protocol gets a fee, and everyone's happy. But here's the thing. If you let anyone borrow a pirate ship, you end up with a shit ton of pirates. In decentralized finance, that means one thing: flash loan attacks. And here's what I mean by that. In DeFi, all the money stored on-chain lives and dies according to the code of the smart contracts running the protocols. If a developer leaves a small vulnerability somewhere in that code, there's nothing stopping a clever attacker from exploiting it. The CEO of Wintermute, an algorithmic crypto trading firm that itself lost $160 million in an attack, accepts that as a risk.
I see those hacks, exploits as basically cost of doing business.
In one of crypto's biggest flash loan attacks, which hit Ethereum's DeFi lending protocol Euler Finance back in April, that's exactly what happened. Euler lets anyone borrow 10 times the value of any tokens they deposit, but it also tracks the amount of debt a wallet has by using corresponding debt tokens. And if your debt exceeds your collateral, your loan is automatically liquidated, theoretically before anything bad happens. But crucially, Euler has to remember to check your levels of debt and collateral every time you interact with the protocol. And as it so happens, just one of its functions was missing that important check. Essentially, the attacker took out a flash loan of $30 million and through multiple wallets, in a coordinated effort, exploited that vulnerability, draining Euler of nearly $200 million worth of tokens.
With $200 million gone from the $250 million in reserves, panic set in.
The attack was possible because there was just one bug in one smart contract, and that smart contract had been audited by security firms Euler hired. But the attack was catastrophic because the hacker was able to fund their attack with a flash loan. Most wannabe hackers don't have a spare $30 million lying around. So simply put, flash loans enable these heists to be much larger. Beanstalk lost $180 million, Pancake Bunny lost $45, and Cream Finance lost $130 million. And no, I'm not pulling a John Oliver. All of those are actual DeFi protocols. Unlike Splooge Finance, which Coinage will launch next spring. #Splooge or bust. But that's the scary part about what flash loans enable in a world where heists happen on-chain. Not only do flash loans invite more pirate ships, they also give them all bigger cannons. And sometimes the people behind those cannons don't really stop to think about what they're doing. Case in point, Abraham Eisenberg, the man behind the $110 million attack on Mango Markets, another DeFi protocol. The neckbeard funded his attack with a group rather than using a flash loan, but by manipulating the price of certain assets, he was able to trick Mango into letting him withdraw all the funds from the protocol. On top of that, Eisenberg tried to shrug off being culpable by calling his heist a, quote, highly profitable trading strategy. He even went on a podcast to try and defend the way he exploited the vulnerability in the protocol's code.
Just speaking in generalities, sometimes it's very unclear what the intent might have been. Sometimes the code doesn't match the docs. Sometimes the docs say something and it's just not implemented. And sometimes the code does exactly what was intended. It's just that what was intended isn't what anyone wanted.
And it turns out that nobody wants to see more than $100 million stolen, especially the feds. Even though he returned a little over half of what he drained from Mango Markets to make mom-and-pop depositors whole, Eisenberg was arrested in Puerto Rico on fraud and market manipulation charges brought by the Department of Justice, the CFTC, and the Southern District of New York. So will the threat of prosecution help deter flash loan attackers? Maybe, or at least it will encourage them to be white hat hackers who report bugs in exchange for above-the-board payouts, rather than black hat hackers like Eisenberg who exploit bugs for their own personal gains. And look, in a lot of ways, it's much easier to steal $100 million from a faceless DeFi protocol than it is to mug one person at gunpoint. You don't have to look into the eyes of your victims. It feels like if you close your computer, none of it ever really happened. But to the people who lose money in flash loan attacks, the pain is very real. Maybe it's worth remembering that as much as it all seems like funny money, it's all very much not. After victims pleaded with the Euler attack on Twitter, he actually wound up returning all $200 million he stole and apologized, begging for forgiveness. As Euler pointed out in a tweet after the funds were returned, the Euler recovery is a reminder to all would-be black hats that it's very difficult to remain anonymous online if there's a sufficiently skilled and motivated group of people looking for you. When access to massive amounts of capital are decentralized, how can we incentivize people to act in a way that does the least amount of harm? With a carrot, aka a bug bounty, or a big-ass stick? The answer is obviously both. I'm Zach Guzman, this is Coinage. Like and subscribe for more, and remember, seriously, stay safe out there.